Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Health officials in Gaza say Israel's unrelenting bombardment of the besieged Palestinian territory has killed another 700 people over the past 24 hours, bringing the death toll over the past 18 days to about 5,800. More than 2,000 children are among the dead. 1.4 million Gazans, or more than half the territory's population, have been displaced. The UN reports at least 42% of Gaza's housing units are damaged or destroyed. In northern Gaza, the Indonesian hospital ran out of fuel Monday and suffered a power outage that brought life-saving medical equipment offline before officials restored power. Gaza's health ministry says it will run out of fuel for electric generators at other hospitals within the next 48 hours. It reports 32 of Gaza's health centers are out of service. Elsewhere, officials at Al-Wafa Hospital in Gaza City say the building's entrance and surrounding areas were targeted today in an Israeli airstrike. Meanwhile, a convoy of trucks carrying humanitarian aid remains stalled on the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing into Gaza. So far, Israel has allowed fewer than 100 trucks into Gaza, which aid groups call a drop in the ocean of what's needed to provide for Gaza's 2.3 million people. A spokesperson for the World Food Program says a critical shortage of fuel is preventing bakeries in Gaza from producing bread.
Not have enough power to get the machines working, and unfortunately some were also hit. And so with this, the collapse of essential infrastructure, the lack of fuel to make sure that the machines are running, it's really making a situation that is already catastrophic worse.
Hamas has released 2 Israeli civilians held hostage in Gaza. On Monday, a Hamas spokesperson said 79-year-old Nurit Cooper and 85-year-old Yocheved Lifshitz had been let go for humanitarian reasons and poor health grounds. Hamas shared videos showing armed fighters releasing the elderly hostages to Red Cross officials. Just before the video ends, Lifshitz reaches back to shake the hand of one of her captors, saying shalom, the Hebrew word for peace. Earlier today, Yocheved Lifshitz spoke to reporters in Tel Aviv, describing a harrowing scene as she was kidnapped and driven off to Gaza on a motorbike with 2 Hamas fighters, then forced to walk for miles through a network of underground tunnels. Once in Gaza, Lifshitz says her treatment improved. She says she was seen by a doctor, fed well, and had the opportunity to wash. Her daughter, Sharon, translated her remarks to reporters.
My mom is speaking about the time there. She's telling us about sharing food with the people, that the people, when she first arrived, when they told them that they are Muslims and they're not going to hurt them, and that they ate the same food that the Hamas was eating.
Israel believes about 220 other hostages remain in Gaza, including the husbands of both women. Hamas has now released a total of 4 women. The United Nations warns nearly 20,000 people across southern Lebanon have fled their homes amidst escalating violence on the Lebanese-Israel border. On Monday, the Biden administration said it's readying plans to evacuate hundreds of thousands of U.S. citizens across the broader Middle East in case Israel's assault on Gaza provokes a wider war, including 600,000 Americans in Israel and another 86,000 in Lebanon. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Israel for meetings with top Israeli officials. In Jerusalem, Macron told Israeli President Isaac Herzog he stood shoulder to shoulder with Israel and pledged France's full support for Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip. Macron urged Israel to avoid what he called a dangerous escalation in the region. Herzog said he also wanted to avoid a wider war, but said Israel stood ready to attack Lebanon if Hezbollah continues cross-border assaults.
I want to make clear, we are not looking for a confrontation in our northern border or with anyone else. We are focused on destroying Hamas infrastructure and bringing our citizens back home. But if Hezbollah will drag us into war, it should be clear that Lebanon will pay the price.
French media report Macron will head to Lebanon and Egypt next. His visit to Israel comes a day after some European Union foreign ministers endorsed a humanitarian pause of Israel's attacks in Gaza. In Washington, D.C., President Biden Monday ruled out U.S. support for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, while Hamas continues to hold hostages. His remarks came as the Pentagon dispatched military advisors and high-tech air defense systems to Israel ahead of Israel's expected ground assault on Gaza. In Canada, a member of the Ontario Legislative Assembly has been censured and expelled from her caucus after making remarks in solidarity with Palestinians. Sarah Jama, who is Black and a disability justice advocate, addressed her colleagues Monday.
I restate my call for an immediate ceasefire by Israeli forces and for the immediate restoration of food, water, fuel, and electricity in Gaza. And I applaud the many elected officials in Canada who have joined this call in recent days, and I hope even more of you will speak out.
Jama now sits as an independent after being removed from Ontario New Democratic Party caucus. Her censure would only be lifted if she issues a formal apology for her remarks. In India, several students were detained in New Delhi Monday as they led a protest near the Israeli embassy demanding a ceasefire in Gaza.
Yet our government, yet most of the countries in the world who hold power are just ignoring the fact as if nothing is happening. Children are dying, hospitals are being bombed. I don't have anything new to say except for the fact that we shouldn't be denied the basic voice that all the students should have in this country.
Here in the United States, pressures mounting on more Congress members to join calls for a ceasefire. On Monday, protesters in Albuquerque, New Mexico, held a nonviolent sit-in at the offices of Senators Martin Heinrich and Ben Ray Lujan, led by Jewish peace activists. 9 people were arrested. The protests came as hundreds of congressional staffers issued an open letter urging lawmakers to support a peaceful resolution to the attacks on Gaza, the return of Israeli hostages, and to grant access to humanitarian aid to the Palestinian territory. Only 18 U.S. lawmakers have signed the ceasefire resolution so far, including Congress members Greg Casar, Pramila Jayapal, and Ilhan Omar. In Ukraine, the governor of Kherson says 2 people were killed and 14 others injured earlier today by Russian artillery fire. This follows a Russian missile strike in Kharkiv on Sunday that created a massive hole in the roof of a postal distribution center, killing 6 people and injuring 14 others.
There was a missile attack. We were working. There was an explosion. Everyone started running away. I did what I could. As much as I managed to, I provided the necessary first aid. Some were stable. They had shrapnel wounds. Some were light. Some more serious. But some people were in critical condition. Ambulances took them away.
In eastern Ukraine, officials in the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk said Ukrainian artillery fire killed 1 civilian, wounded another. Elsewhere, Russia's Navy says it repelled attacks by uncrewed boats launched by Ukraine at Russia's Black Sea Fleet. And Ukraine says it shot down 14 Russian attack drones and a cruise missile. Back in the United States and Texas, Lubbock County officials have approved an ordinance banning pregnant people from traveling through the region to seek an abortion in another state. Lubbock is the largest Texas county to join such efforts. At least 3 other rural counties have also passed similar measures. Lubbock resident Shelley Kemp denounced the move as she addressed county commissioners Monday.
You are going to create a culture of fear and distrust where you set neighbor against neighbor. It's going to have a chilling effect. Just for example, the language used, abortion tourism and trafficking, that immediately creates fear and distrust.
The United Auto Workers has expanded its strike against the big 3 U.S. automakers. On Monday, 6,800 auto workers walked out of the Stellantis Sterling Heights assembly plant near Detroit, Michigan. The UAW notes Stellantis made $18 billion in profits last year as Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares earned total compensation of nearly $25 million, earning as much per day as an average Stellantis employee takes home in a year. UAW President Shawn Fain joined workers on the picket line Monday.
They've made $250 billion in the last decade. I mean, Stellantis alone made $12 billion in the first 6 months of this year. They can afford this. They can make it happen. Our workers deserve their share. I mean, while they say they can't afford this, the next day they announce more dividends for shareholders.
Here in New York, the prestigious Community and Cultural Center on the Upper East Side, 92NY, formerly known as the 92nd Street Y, has temporarily postponed its literary reading series as it faces growing backlash for canceling an event with the Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Viet Thanh Nguyen over his criticism of Israeli violence and Palestinians and calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. In response, a number of writers scheduled to participate in the months-long series pulled out, while several 92NY staff resigned from their jobs. Writer and critic Andrea Long Chu, who's among those who pulled out of the series, referred to 92NY as a pro-war nonprofit. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.